So in Islam, the Prophet ﷺ, he emphasized that the animals must be treated well.
When we first tried to open, we did get a lot of nasty messages on social media from non-Muslims complaining that they're going to tell people to boycott us or not come to our restaurant because we're halal.
People come here, they just got this like idealized idea of what it takes to put an animal down, you know, and it's killing. They think you say Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, and then somehow it's peaceful for the animal. Who told you that? Who told you that?
This is me, a young Muslim girl growing up in Calgary, a modest-sized prairie city in Canada with a large cowboy and farming culture. As a Muslim, living in a predominantly white city, the only halal meat we had access to came from a few butchers spread across the city. That's because we didn't have many options for halal meat restaurants. When I moved to London, my options for halal meat changed dramatically. I could have anything from gourmet burgers to an expensive cut of steak, and they'd all be halal certified. That's because there's a demand for it. The UK is home to over 3 million Muslims, the largest demographic being South Asian, then Black, then Arab, and other ethnic groups. In London alone, there are over 1 million Muslims, and for context, that's the total population of Calgary. Shopping for halal meat in London is easy. At the very least, there's halal options at large chains like Morrison's or Asda, while in some parts of London, the high street is filled with shops run by the Muslim diaspora. The global Islamic economy is growing. A 2014 Reuters report expected the global halal meat market to grow to $1.9 trillion by 2021. In the UK alone, the halal meat market is worth £3 billion and is only expected to grow. But the question remains, what exactly is halal, and is there a new way forward to the way Muslims consume halal meat? I've arrived at the West London Islamic Centre to sit down with an imam to help me understand what halal meat means. Halal is an Arabic word meaning lawful or permitted. In reference to food, it's the dietary standards as prescribed in the Quran. The concept of halal applies to all aspects of Muslim life.
In Islam, there are certain animals that are permissible for Muslims to eat, and certain animals are prohibited. We cannot eat them, and so the animals that we are allowed to eat must be slaughtered according to the Quran and the prophetic tradition of the Prophet ﷺ. So slaughtering of the animals by cutting the windpipe or the jugular vein is a requirement. So in Islam, the Prophet ﷺ, he emphasized that the animals must be treated well. The master of the animal or the owners, they must take care of the animals. They must keep them in good condition. They must allow them, to have a healthy lifestyle. So before you slaughter the animal, you must check the health conditions of the animal, the food of the animal, how it lived in, how it was transported. So all of these must be taken into account when the animal is being slaughtered, and then it becomes halal or permissible for the Muslim to eat. Yeah.
While the process of defining halal meat Islamically is quite straightforward, certifying halal meat is trickier. A simple Google search yields dozens of cases of halal meat fraud in the last 5 years. In the UK alone, there are over 15 halal certification boards. One of the largest and most recognized is the HMC, the Halal Monitoring Committee.
The organization started back in 2003 at the back of much food fraud or halal food fraud that was taking place, unfortunately. And it's a scholarly-led organization since its inception. So the founding members at the time researched the industry because of all the food fraud that was taking place to ensure that, what is halal compliance, what should it be, what are the realities on the ground. And they soon established that what was being sold as halal didn't sort of conform to the expectations of halal at all.
While the Muslim community has set up systems and certification boards to ensure the halal meat standards are met, they are still facing issues. In the UK, there is a lot of pushback from anti-halal groups. Much of it is Islamophobic rhetoric, while some of it is concerned about the lack of clear halal labeling.
A long list of high street chains are selling meat to their customers without telling them how it's slaughtered.
It's just a question of making sure that when people buy something in the supermarket or in Pizza Express or wherever, they're given basic information about how that food and how that meat has been prepared.
With a population of over 2 million Muslims in the UK, an industry worth over £3 billion, and a need to produce meat for the global Islamic market, the UK halal meat industry seems overwhelmed, overburdened, and unsustainable. But there has to be another way to produce and consume halal meat, one that takes into consideration the true Islamic values of raising and slaughtering livestock. Throughout my interviews, I kept hearing about the word Tayyab, and so I decided to investigate more. Tayyab is an Arabic word, meaning wholesome, pleasant, lawful, pure and clean. In reference to halal meat, it refers to livestock that is treated with the utmost regard and dignity for the duration of its life. In other words, it's an Islamic practice that closely mirrors the idea of free-range and organic farming. I traveled to Wales to speak with Mohsen Hassanen, owner, farmer, and butcher of Harmony Farm. Harmony Farm consists of over 30 acres of land dedicated to rearing free-range livestock and organic produce for the local community. Mohsen works with other halal suppliers to build a network of locally grown, free-range and organic meat for the UK's Muslim population.
Nutrition was started to become a big part of it. I started meeting farmers. I started talking to them about what's going onto the ground, what's going into the soil. And then I met people that were in the permaculture community, and I just felt that they were very proactive. They were like every weekend they were doing something and they were getting involved, they were getting their hands dirty. And I thought, that's a bit of me. And I just kind of got a bit more of a taste of that. And then I started realizing how expensive real food is as well. It's cheap. Ultra processed food is cheap, but real food is expensive. So I was like, how can I reduce this cost? Raise my own animals, raise my own, vegetables. So I started growing a bit of vegetables at home, and I said, I need a little place, like an allotment. And then my mum was like, why don't we move to a farm? Why do you think we move to the countryside? Because I know the industry now, whenever I see a halal stamp, I believe it to a certain level. And the whole stun, not stun thing is just a red herring. When it comes to halal, stunning and non-stunning, the question is all the stuff that happens before, not the kill. All of the raising, all of the looking after. Temple Granny said, when you think about slaughtering a cow, you got to think about when the cow's born. And that, when it's a calf, get it onto transport. Get used to transport. So transport is the number one thing. Animals hate being transported. When I kill my chickens, I don't even like taking them a crate from the shed to there. I like to try and kill them right near the shed if I can. They hate being transported. They hate being bundled into something and moved. That's their nature. So your egg breed, they are light, very small, very light. They will lay probably 300 to 340 eggs a year. Wow. Between 240 and 340 eggs a year. Day. Yeah, pretty much one a day. The goal for my cows is to try and keep them out all year, and then feed them hay in that field that they're going to probably damage, which is that last field in the winter. So the field that's below here, there's a little very sloping field down there, and that's kind of where they are for the winter, and I feed them like that. Our interaction with them is one of reciprocity. We're going to take a couple of your babies every year, or every out of every other year or whatever, every 2 years, and for that we're going to feed you, we're going to look after you. It's a reciprocal relationship, and that has been for 10,000 years, or 7,000 years since we domesticated cattle.
London doesn't lack for the wide range of halal dining options, but few take into consideration the principles of Tayyab, sourcing local produce, and providing British fine dining options to the community. However, one such restaurant that does this is the Great Chase, located in central London.
I mean, we're British. It's our nationality, and we're proud of it too. So we wanted to create a sort of modern British, modern European dining experience around this. In London, we have a huge number of halal restaurants, but at the time it was a lot of the same. So it was concentrated in a lot of the same sort of restaurants multiple times. So I had the struggle of, I always wanted to eat out and try British food, the stuff I saw on MasterChef, on TV. I met my business partner, Simon, and I explained my situation to him, and he thought it was quite sad that there are a group of people that don't get to enjoy this kind of food completely comfortably and fully halal. So we got together, put our brains together, and then we created this. I also think when people think of the word halal, predominantly it can have quite a negative connotation amongst the general public, and I thought it's good to create a conversation around what halal actually means, what the aspect of Tayyab is in this scenario. Tayyab essentially means wholesome, being that it's a wholesome process. So you don't allow any suffering of the animals. You let them live freely, comfortably, having good food. Ultimately, they're not supposed to know that they are being raised for slaughter. I haven't eaten free range my whole life, and I still go out and eat in restaurants that don't. It's not that it's all or nothing. It's just making little changes in everyone's choices. So when diners do choose to come and dine here, at least they're getting to have free range when they're here. I think there is a space for this to grow. I think, and if there wasn't, we probably still wouldn't be here as a restaurant. We get really good conversations with customers, and it seems there is a lot of Muslims essentially that are very conscious about where their meat's coming from, where their food's coming from. They're becoming a lot more sort of conscious about it. There's a lot of online purchases now. I see a lot on social media. People are now buying steaks online and cooking out at home, and they're buying sort of proper dry-aged meat. They're buying beef raised in lovely farms, and people are buying now online free-range halal chicken, organic halal chicken. I mean, it costs a lot of money, but the fact that a few people are doing it means as long as they create some demand for it, then hopefully that means businesses are going to just put a bit more money into keeping that momentum, basically.
The meat industry isn't perfect, whether we consume halal or non-halal meat. Overconsumption and high demand continues to exist. Researching and filming for this documentary has shed light on the way the Muslim community consumes meat, and that needs to change. I know change begins with me, and I do think there's a way we can consume meat mindfully and in line with true halal and tayyib principles.
I think the change needs to be made by the rearers and the people that are practicing rearing of the animals, because they're the only ones in control of creating that system or procedure in place. If they're raising it really poorly in poor conditions, and chickens are breaking their wings and they're trapped in their cages and all that sort of stuff, then they are answerable for that practice, but not so much the consumer. The only difference is if consumers raise awareness and they want to start having a bit more free range, it just grows the market a bit more. It forces the market to try and make some changes.
So in the Quran, Allah said, وَكُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا وَلَا تُسْرِفُوا. Eat and drink and do not be excessive in food. And the Prophet ﷺ said, the worst container a human being can feel is his stomach. So he said, do not eat unless you feel the pain of hunger. And when you eat, he said, فَثُلُثُ لِلطَّعَامِ, 1/3 for food, 1/3 for water, 1/3 for air.
You can make informed decisions, that's the point. And we see it a lot with our customers that they don't make that jump. They're going to take a little taste of it and then they go, you know what, that's it for me. I can't afford to feed my family £17 chickens a week, But you could if you changed the way you consumed it, Eat less good quality meat.
It's $1 million question, and I think if you look at the consumption, the demand is so huge. It's so massive that an organic option or a free range option just simply wouldn't sustain the demand.
There's a lot of misinformation and fear about the halal meat industry, but this documentary has shown me that there's a new way forward. But the question remains, are we ready to go down that path?
We're meant to respect every being, right? Being Muslims and being human, we are the guardians of this planet, so we should really try and look after everything around us. And it's a blessing that Allah gave us animals to eat, so we should respect that.